Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. On this, let's call it rather interesting. It's somewhat exciting day, the 27th of January, 2022. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Superstore Omni True Value Hardware, where you've got everything you need as this winter storm looks like it's going to unfold. You might need rock salt, you might need sand, you might need some of the commercial snow and ice products like Pelledo and Mag Ice pellets and flakes and calcium deicer. That's the store from the outside when it's snow free. And of course, if you do need a new snowblower, they've got a few there, and spreaders, and there's your Mag and Pelledo, and your rock salt. The lowest prices anywhere in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area. They've got tons of it. They are Long Island's largest supplier of rock salt. So if you can't find it, they got it. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County, north of the Sunrise Highway, south of the Long Island Expressway, and north of the Southern State Parkway. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And we have our special, because he is special, very special, guest tonight. Last night we had Mansour Goodman, Bill Goodman, and Bill Corbell to opine on the coming shenanigans. And tonight we have wonderfully retired, golf playing with his visor on, holding that hairpiece in perfectly, retired meteorologist Toni Gigi from who worked for a number of years at the National Weather Service in Mount Holly, New Guernsey. How are you, Anthony?
I am fine. I find it very relaxing to be retired at these times with the situations like this, especially in the Mount Holly area, which is not as clear cut as I wish I could be like switch spots with Bill Goodman, and just say, hey, I slip. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty solid out there.
Yeah, you're the Jersey expert here, and we have a lot of folks on the chat board that are on from New Jersey, so you'll be able to give us the New Jersey perspective. Welcome to everyone on the chat board tonight. It's really good to see everyone. I just want to very quickly ask that if you would, I put up something. It's pinned up to the top of the chat board. Please read it, okay? And we will just leave it at that. So on that note, if you have any questions or comments, by all means, feel free to put them on the chat board. Welcome to any of new viewers, because we've got lots of new arrivals here to the Joe and Joe Weather Show and to my YouTube channel, Joe Chaffee. So if you are new, welcome, and you can participate in the conversation, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel by simply hitting the subscribe button using your Gmail account, and you will be notified every time we do a Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is 5 days a week on most weeks. And Joe Rayo, I'm thinking we're going to be on tomorrow, and we're going to be on Saturday. So maybe we'll get a rare Sunday off, perhaps, unless we want to do a post-mortem Sunday morning, in which case we'll take Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, we could. I think after this, we're gonna need a day or two off. And the interesting thing, and I don't know if you discovered it, a new feature on tropical tidbits.
Yes,
that our dear friend
mentioned it last night. Yes, tropical tidbits.
Now we have. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, on the European, we now can see the European not in 24-hour increments, but we can now see it in 3-hour increments, and they have added on tropical tidbits moisture. We can actually see measurable precipitation values on the European. So yes. I really, but the one thing I don't like, Joe, and I don't know if you tried getting it today, is now on the GFS. I tried looking at the 24-hour accumulated precipitation, and it wasn't available. And I have a feeling it has something to do with the fact that all of the different changes that are going on with the system, with the overall system. And so there are some things that are just not available at the present time. But the one thing I really wanted to see is the 24-hour accumulated precipitation on the GFS for this particular storm.
But in this particular storm, Joe, there's no precipitation going into this. So whatever you get on the regular total precipitation map, just stop it at 72 hours, and you're going to get that's the whole storm.
Well, I didn't think about it doing it that way. But
yeah, just it's cumulative. So just go to the 72-hour. Yeah, and Levi Cowan, by the way, he's on Patreon, and which basically supports all the servers that he uses to run Tropical Tidbits. So if you feel up to it and would like to, we'll go to Levi Cowan's Patreon page, and you can pop him a few bucks to help him pay the bills. And he did add, he's got 2 layers now with the European. So all the maps where he used to do it the old way, he created a separate category there. I think it's called EC Fast. It's right under the
right.
Yes, it's a second. So if you want to just see the old maps real quick when they come in, which they come in early, you can go to that one. With the other one, you'll see the detailed maps. The only issue with that is that they're on delay. So I already saw them on pivotalweather.com, but I think last night when I tried to pull them up after they had all been in, they weren't up there. So speaking of the new European, it is out and it's up, and it's very interesting. There are a number of things that went on today. I'm going to ask you, Joe, straight out: Are you planning to do anything with your numbers from yesterday?
I didn't change anything. The same map I drew yesterday is up again today, and I said I reserve the right to make a final change tomorrow. I want to wait until tomorrow before I finally stuck my neck fully out. But what I put up yesterday is more or less up there today as well. I don't know. Did you revise anything on yours?
I have not changed anything, but I am considering moving my amounts higher. I want to wait for one more GFS run to confirm what the 18Z did, just to make sure. And Toni, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, because I don't know if you know about this, but
yes.
Yesterday, I don't know if you were looking at the models yesterday afternoon, but there was a lot of controversy is probably not the right word, but maybe like consternation and angst over the fact that the GFS, that the NAM model went from showing a rather big event at 12Z to showing absolutely nothing and pitching, not only pitching a shutout here, but pitching a shutout all the way to Boston. And we were all looking at it with just sort of amazement and just, because it was so strange. It was, but lately, in the last couple of weeks, the NAM has been throwing these curveballs. I just wondered if you saw it yesterday and had any opinion on that.
No, I think I liked Rich Grum said this one thing about the NAM. He seems like people with the NAM fall into 2 camps: people who swear by it and people who swear at it. And I really don't look at the NAM until like we get like within 36 to 24 hours of an event. It's like, it's even like in Philly weather, like sometimes you get a run which just totally just bombs you. And everyone just says, like you got NAM'd on that run, So I don't know. It seems like there's just a lot of variability in that model, which I can't totally explain like why it does what it does. But I really don't start like looking at it until like we get like within like 24 to 36 hours.
All right.
And also when you're talking about looking, when you talk about like, I guess finalizing everything tomorrow, I don't know if you saw it already or if you're going to talk about it, if I'm jumping the gun with this. But they are actually doing some reconnaissance flights and drop sounds off the Southeast Atlantic coast for tonight's run.
Oh, that's great. That would be,
that's great.
That'd certainly be helpful to get a little additional information about all this. There were a number of key things that happened today that I think are really important to point out. I'm going to set it up on the map, and while I do that, just as a reminder, Joe Rayo is monitoring the chat board, and will, of course, again pass along any messages, questions, or comments. And also, we always like to thank those of you who hit the super chat tip jar, and Joe will be
Well,
monitoring that as well. So
speaking
I'm gonna set this up, and you go ahead, Joe.
speaking of the tip jar, Joe, we have already in the tip jar tonight David Fuller, Richard Melchar, Johnny Quest, Steve Lapointe, Paul Roman, DeVio Don, Bill Fisher, Janet Dunn, Chuck Cardillo, Scott Adventures, and Chris Neopedia. And all of them, Joe, every single one of them wants to wish you a very, very happy natal day.
Thank you very much. Very, very generous and most appreciated. Thank you very much for hitting super chat on my 63rd birthday. And I will just tell you this: back in November, when I was sick before I had my emergency appendectomy, and then had to deal with the stomach issues that were there but weren't made known to me until I, well, experienced 2 weeks of pain. That There was a point there where I thought, you know what, maybe I'm not going to make it to my 63rd birthday. Not that I was that sick, but you just when you're not able to do anything and you're lying in bed for 2 straight weeks, it's tough. And the only time I would get up was to do the show or to put a website post up or to try to eat applesauce and bananas, which was basically my diet for 9 weeks. So anyway, thank you very, very much, everybody, for the birthday wishes. So here's my thought.
And I want to ask, I want to ask you two one thing.
Yes.
Since we got into the discussion about the NAM, did either one of you, and in fact, our mutual friend Joe P. Bergman said, I didn't notice that until you pointed it out to me. The 12-kilometer NAM has us in snow for this upcoming event, and a modest amount of snow, not a blistering, paralyzing blizzard, but snow. But did either one of you notice that the 3-kilometer NAM, the one that supposedly has a higher resolution, does not have much of anything for this storm, for our area and for most of the coastal Northeast? The NAM, the 3-kilometer NAM is much less as opposed to the 12-kilometer NAM. I'm wondering if either one of you noticed that.
Tony, you go first.
Yeah, I have noticed that. It's almost as if like some of these mesoscale models like really love cold, dry air. I don't think I could figure out like why they're doing what they're doing, because it seems like there's a lot of erosion or less on the northwest side of this system. So I don't know. I mean, it's like everything else. It's like I'll say it's an outlier, which doesn't mean that it can't possibly happen, although I doubt it will, but it's just a low probability event. Just like on the flip side, you'll have like some ensemble members that are dropping 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I looked at it. I looked at it briefly. I don't know why I even did, because I have to tell you, during the winter months and with these wintertime systems, I almost never look at it. Unless I see somebody pointing out that let's say we're dealing with a 995 low, and somebody will say, "Did you see the 3-kilometer? It's got a 938 hurricane in southeast of New Jersey with 20 feet of snow," and then I'll just go look at it and laugh. I really don't use the 3 kilometer as a tool. I did look at it, but it's not something I go to. Tony, with respect to what you said about some of these mesoscale models, like in cold, dry air, when I looked at it this morning early, and I haven't looked at it since, I noticed that the HRRR was basically keeping everything offshore for just about everybody, and I just discounted that. I think this is a global model specialty with what's going on. This is a big system involving a lot of stuff from Labrador down to Cuba, out in the Atlantic, and everything else. And I got to think that the global models are the ones that are really going to have the handle on this. It just maybe is a question of which global model has the best handle on it. My own personal view on this, I think this is I think we could put this in the camp that maybe the Canadian wins because it was one of the first ones really to show this storm in the position that it may wind up, and it also where the European, at least on the 18Z run, is now kind of matching up with where the Canadian has it, which is to take it almost right over Cape Cod. And in fact, the Canadian actually changes the precip at Cape Cod to rain for a time. So, and I think that's significant if it happens there with what happens to the south and west of the low center. So I think the Canadian, we always joke about the Canadian that it got the Boxing Day storm right before everybody else, and I think there was one other storm in 2017 or 18 where that big storm that it nailed, and now it can go to sleep for 4 or 5 years, and we'll come back to it in 2025 or 2026.
Well, Joe, I mean, I'll say the name, and everyone knows him, like Walt Drag.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Mr.
Yes,
Drag.
Walt.
Yes.
Mr. Drag. Yes, happily retired and still talking weather up in Sussex County, New Jersey. But Walt, I mean, I had the pleasure of working for him for like my last few years before I retired, and he retired a couple of years after I did. And you always listen to Walt, because I mean he speaks from experience. I mean he loves the good snowstorm.
And he wrote great discussions.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah. And he always said, and that it not necessarily what, with the details with the Canadian, but if you want a winter storm event to occur, he says you have to have the Canadian on board. So the Canadian's standing by itself, okay, maybe not, but if you have like the European model, like the way it's been pretty consistent the last couple of days, and you have the Canadian with it, that's almost like, okay, then we're ready to go.
Right, that's the couplet you want to see.
Yes.
And that's I started leaning to the idea of upping numbers this morning because the Canadian, the Canadian, the European, the icon, which I look at the icons from time to time, and the icon sometimes matches up scarily to the European, and then other times it's in some sort of la-la land. But all three of those were locked. So I was pretty well convinced at that point that the GFS was going to be the outlier. It was the outlier, and we're just waiting for the model to throw some hints that it's going to start, going toward the other models. And I think it did that today on the 18Z run. Now I'm going to show you how I came to this conclusion. And we of course all week long and before we've been talking about this deep upper trough in the eastern part of the U.S. So I pulled up the 12Z NAM 500 and took a look at it this afternoon. I think it was the 12 or the 18Z. It was the 18Z. So I pulled up the 18Z NAM 500 and I used the map on Tropical Tidbits where it showed the vorticity. And I went to Saturday morning and I pulled up, and I have it on the screen right now, and you can see the upper trough here, straight down along 80 and going negative across North Carolina, the tilt going negative across North Carolina, and then out offshore. So the NAM was showing that. I saw what it did at the surface, the 12Z, the 18Z, they were, pretty well in lockstep. And I said, okay. And then I pulled up the GFS when it came out, and I pulled up the same map, which I'm going to do now. And I looked at it and I said, oh, that's pretty interesting because it's coming up now. It kind of looks identical. So I asked myself, well, why is it that the GFS continues to kind of show this low going well out to the east? And I also noticed when I looked at the surface on this run that the western edge of the precip shield was to the left. Instead of being cutting across western New Jersey on the Jersey side, it had moved left by a fair number of miles into eastern Pennsylvania. And also it increased the precipitation considerably, the liquid precipitation amounts in the southern half of New Jersey down into Delaware. So I was kind of looking at this and saying, okay, well, how what's going on? So I think I kind of figured out here why the GFS has been doing what it's doing. And it has to do with the fact that when we go to 18 hours on Saturday, you kind of see this very broad opening. There is actually an upper low that is beginning to form somewhere just east of the Delmarva Peninsula. Because on the next frame, you're going to see a three contour cutoff sitting right near Cape Cod. So it was showing a deepening upper low starting there and going up toward Cape Cod. And then when you go to the surface, all the other models, I don't know if you look closely at the surface of the other models, they all had this sort of double low structure where the a surface low was formed under the upper low, and I believe that that's the reason why you saw the other models show this extension of the precip shield much further west than the GFS. And indeed, on this run, if you look closely, there's a double low structure on Saturday morning. The surface low is way out that they have the L printed at 37 and 69, but there's actually a low at the other end of the isobar at 37 and 72 and a half. And I looked back at a few of the other runs. The GFS was really not picking up on this, which is what the other models were picking up on. And finally today on the 18Z run, we have a clear reflection of that low that's pinned under the upper low. And I think that is the important part of this whole storm, this whole complex that we're looking at, is that the GFS was actually taking its energy from the developing cutoff and throwing it out to the ocean low, which is why it took the ocean low as far out as it did, and ignoring the fact that there was going to probably be some kind of surface reflection underneath that upper low and some energy with that was going to throw back precip to the coast. That once I kind of got that clear in my head, I came to the conclusion that if it does it one more time tonight, and that really should lock it in with the other models, I would feel comfortable about upping the amounts that I put up last night.
Yeah, and we know with that previous event that ended up like going pretty far west, Joe, and like where the heaviest snow was in Erie.
Yes.
The GFS seemed like it really got benefit from those drop sounds. Because that one event where originally like the European was pretty offshore. Actually, they were all pretty far offshore. All of a sudden, the GFS, like maybe they didn't jump to the final conclusion, but really made a leap to the northwest with that system, and that coincided with those drop sound runs that they had. So maybe tonight's run, again, kind of solidifies the deal. I know I saw your broadcast from a couple of days ago where and even yesterday, the spread was pretty large between some of the globals and some of the mesoscale models, that this will like really tighten the envelope even more. And you can be even more confident about like what the models are forecasting.
Mr. Rayo, do you have a never to be humble opinion on this?
No, I look forward to tonight's model runs only because, again, as Toni mentioned, the fact that we now have additional data going in, and that system is, even as we speak now, beginning to put itself together off the southeast coastline of the United States. We hopefully will have, as Toni mentioned, a tighter regime of more models will be on the same page, and we'll have more of a certainty or surety as to what is going to take place on Saturday. Regardless, though, of whatever snow we get, one of the things I mentioned on Facebook is that Saturday is going to be a really nasty day. Between the fact that the temperatures are going to be hard pressed in most areas to make it much above 20, we're going to have steady or sustained winds from the northwest at 15 to 25, and there'll be places, especially along the coastline, that'll have gusts in excess of 50 miles an hour. So we're looking also for coastal areas, especially, to possibly see problems with trees and power lines coming down or whatever. It is just going to be, and it's, as I said, with those winds, the chill factor is going to make it feel like it's in the single digits to near 10. So again, regardless of how much snow you get, and whatever snow you get will be puffy and powdery and will be blown around all over the place. It's just going to be an all-out nasty winter-like day. If those of you who are looking forward to a good old-fashioned winter day, you're about to get one, I think, on Saturday.
By the way, here's the RGEM, and back I forgot what year it was, but back about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when you and I were working at Fios, there was a stretch. There was one. I don't remember what winter, but there was a long stretch of weather systems that the RGEM just nailed. I mean, I started using it because of it. It was on it had an incredibly hot hand, and then I kind of stopped looking at it for a while, and a couple of days ago, when it was in its range, I said, let me take a look at the RGEM because all these other models are so different, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I have to tell you, there's been a remarkable consistency with the RGEM. It actually, surprisingly, it has the snow shield going all the way up almost to Albany and almost to Williamsport in Pennsylvania. Now, in this instance, we're talking going back about the upper low, the upper low and the reflection of that on the surface. It shows up well here on the RGEM. The ocean low is actually to the left of where the GFS has it because the GFS wanted to throw it out to the east. But there's that second low that's pinned back, and that is where the upper, it's very close to where the upper low is developing. And that is, I think, as I said, responsible for throwing the snow shield pretty far back to the west, and it actually has those dark blue heavy snow bands, lying right along the New Jersey shore and over Long Island. The last 4 or 5 runs of the RGEM have not really changed very much. And the RGEM, by the way, is the regional, the Canadian. It's a Canadian model. It's sort of like the Canadians version of the NAM, and it has been, as I said, pretty steady through all of this, having a robust west side. And Anthony, I think you'll agree. One of the challenge in the forecast here is less, to me, is less about what's going to fall in coastal areas. Not that that isn't an issue, but I think the challenge is less with what falls in coastal areas and areas east of New York City to southern New England. I think the biggest challenge here is going to be, where is that western edge? Because it's going to be very, very sharp.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It seems like usually Philadelphia is on the edge one way or another in terms of like the rain snow line.
Right.
This time, I mean, as of the runs today, it's like Philadelphia is going to be pretty close to the edge in terms of like where you're going to go from maybe a couple of inches of snow to 5 to 8 inches of snow.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's the only thing is, I guess, but the upper low being that far west for a while, and with the cold front coming down, I mean, you're probably going to get a little, some snow tomorrow, and that's going to just, you could get a half an inch to an inch with that,
right.
And then you just get additional powder on top of it before eventually the cold dry air wins out over there.
And here, by the way, I have the actual global Canadian model with a 973 low. This is Saturday afternoon, a 973 low inside the benchmark at 39.8 and 70.5. I certainly think we know Southeastern New England is going to get hit. And by the way, it does change its terrain very briefly on the Cape, and I think that's the fact that it's doing that is telling, obviously it's because of the fact that the low is west of 70 and getting very close to being near the Cape. But having that happen there is, to me, sort of an indicator that if you want to make the argument that the snow shield is going to be further, the western edge is going to be further to the west, that would be one argument. Because if it was all snow at the Cape, then the low is passing well south and east of the Cape. In this case, it's passing really close. You're getting enough warm air to come in to change it over to rain for a short time. And the Canadian does have that snow shield almost as far west and almost as far north as the RGEM. And it does have the darker blue snows, the shade. It's a little hard to see on this screen, but if you look on your computer screen, you can see that there's very, very light different shadings of blue until you get to those really dark blues. And of course, the darkest blues, that's probably 2 to 3 inches an hour or more. And that's going to be for, touching eastern Long Island on the Canadian. and going into Rhode Island and eastern Massachusetts and down over to the Cape. That they may wind up with, they're certainly going to get a foot plus, and they may be, uh, approach a two handle in some places. It wouldn't surprise me if all this precip winds up, they get over 2 inches of liquid. What's going to stop that from going up, even just with straight 10-to-1 ratios? I mean, that certainly says 18 or 20 up there.
And Joe, the Cobb snow to liquid equivalent ratios are in the Boston area. And again, this is just like one NAM run. Was pretty obscene. It was like 15 to 18 to 1 ratios. So that would be quite the snow for Boston if those ratios and that QPF actually ended up working out.
I'm going to set. I want to set up another map. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to just bring us up full screen, and I want to ask you a question, because this has actually come up with me, because I had a. By the way, I meant to mention to you at the beginning, not to make you nervous, Anthony, but Alan Casper is watching as we speak. He may have his yellow pad and pencil, and they may be writing down and grading us. So just beware. We are all graduates. We are all graduates of the Alan Casper School of Snow Forecasting.
Well, at least the one thing, Joe, tonight I can't come in fourth place.
All right, so
Joe, I just want to add, they just keep coming. Anthony Salvato, Eric P, Jay-Z Videography, Shelly Man Studios, David Drew, Michael Pam, Mr. Poetic, Joe Lepresi, and I want to apologize to William Huber, who was the very first up on the chat board, but I didn't catch him. The executive producer came running down and said, you must mention William Huber, and I am mentioning him now. Thank you all for your Joe Chiaffi birthday super chat hits tonight.
Thank you very much, everybody. You're very generous. Thank you for remembering my birthday. Thank you. It's been a pretty good day. I bought myself a birthday present. I bought myself a state-of-the-art, super-duper water purifying system that I had installed, that the plumber installed this afternoon, and didn't charge me an arm and a leg for it either, for the installation. So I'm a very happy man. I have pristine well water now, which is good. So here's my question while I do some map maneuvering. So we got into a conversation last night about the snow maps. Do you know much about there's the regular snow map, and then there's the Cuchera snow map? And are you familiar with what the differences are and whether it's a useful tool or not?
I know that because under colder conditions that people like to post the Cuchera maps because they have more snowfall predicted on them. And from what I was reading about the Cuchera today, because that has come up, that it seems like it's more useful in transitional situations than in like pure snow scenarios. I think also it kind of lends into the problem that models still have like kind of an inherent wet bias. I mean, you're not going to, the models are not going to forecast an inch of water equivalent out of this. You're going to get 0.5.
Right.
They get 0.8, 0.9. And the Cuchera kind of just exacerbates that error in terms of a snowfall forecast. And from what I've read, and although you can't find it in too many places, not on maps, is that the Cobb method is supposed to be more accurate than the Cuchera method.
The Cobb map?
COBB.
Oh, that's a new one on me. I haven't heard that. I heard of that one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well that's something to look for.
Yeah,
I don't know that anybody posts it, but I'll do a little Googling after the show and see if I can find it.
Yeah, I don't know if they have their maps for it. See, that's just the thing, is that there is a link which show, because my setup here, I can't show you the link. And you know what? I may be able to comment it, right? I could put it in the comments, right?
You can no, I can put links in the comments. What you could do is
All right.
what you could do is later on, maybe after the show, because I know you're on your phone. Well,
Mhm.
you could do it from your desktop if you want to send it to me on Messenger. You could do it that way. Uh, and maybe I can translate it if it's an easy link. I'll have to retype it and then I can put it on. Or you could email it to me if you have my email address.
Okay, so on the right side here, where it says "say something," I can't say anything.
No. If you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you should be able to type. It's just that it doesn't accept links
Okay.
from the only person it accepts links from
Oh,
is me
okay.
because it's my
Oh,
channel.
oh,
So
okay.
uh,
Oh,
that's
okay. All
how it
right. Yeah,
works.
yeah. So typing it, yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah.
That
So,
was the easy way
okay,
to say it,
that's all
and
right.
I didn't figure that out. All right. Well, you know what? Later on, or
Right, right.
maybe after the show, I'll give you my my email. You can just email it to me, and I'll take a look at it. All right. So
Or even messenger,
or you can send it to me on
even
Messenger.
messenger you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Or you could text it to me afterward.
Hmm.
All right. So let's let me go. Let me bring up. I've got the 18Z European and off of Tropical Tidbits. It has updated far enough, so that's a big plus. And we can. I want to take a look at the. There's no snow map to look at. We don't really like to show those anyhow. But there is the preset map. So and just going back to this question of ratios, how do we play? Because I have not really considered ratios in my early call forecast because I did it yesterday, and yeah, I knew where the temperatures were going to be, but I didn't want to start playing around with numbers above 10 to 1 until we got to Friday so that I can, and I kind of sort of put an asterisk there when I did my forecast that the ratios weren't included. But so here's the Europeans preset map from the 18Z. And on the close up, now it has the western edge of, it actually has 3/10 of an inch of liquid all the way up into northwest New Jersey, 2/10 into eastern Pennsylvania. The half an inch is north and west of New York City, but not by too many miles, northeastern New Jersey. But then you get down into central and South Jersey. If you draw a line from what looks like almost Staten Island down to Millville and then continuing down into central Delaware, that's the western edge of 3/4. And along the coast is a thin strip of an inch, the beginnings of 1 inch. The gradients there, the gradations are very tight. I looked at the European on Pivotal and I saw the numbers that they put out. So they basically put out an inch to an inch and a quarter liquid amounts for the coastal stations and 6 or 7 tenths for places like Philadelphia, Trenton, Newark, and so on. And then when you look on Long Island, it started putting 2 inch liquid amounts over eastern Long Island, and of course it's southeastern New England. So, uh, what are you thinking here with everything that you have to consider when it comes to snow ratios? What kind of a number would you work in there? Would you work in 13 to 1, 15 to 1 for places like New York, Philadelphia, for the Jersey Shore, for example? Let's take those 3 points to start off with. What would you what would you think a good ratio to use would be?
Joe, I would have to actually look at the soundings and see if the omega coincided with the growth zone temperatures.
Okay.
So it's not, unfortunately, it's
I mean,
not, it's. Mhm.
no, I'm
Go
going to
ahead,
say so
Joe.
you can't. It's not something obviously it's not anything you could
No,
do right now. But
no, no.
let's say in your experience, if we're seeing temperatures in the low
Right,
20s and
right.
conditions were maybe not ideal, but close to ideal in a situation like this, would you think maybe 15 to 1 would be a good number to use, or higher maybe, or lower?
No, no, I would actually probably, I may go lower because it's the temperature and ratios are not, they're not correlated necessarily. But maybe 11 to 1 or 12 to 1. I'm just looking at what, again, I'm sorry that
No, no, no,
I
no,
can see
no.
the cob and you
Listen,
can't see the cob.
I'm learning this because all
Mhm,
the way I used to do it was
mhm.
I basically
Right,
would look at the T1s and T3s and then
right.
just
Mhm,
guess and
mhm.
just basically guess.
Yeah, but of course, the other complication to all of this is that usually in deformation zone snows, and there's going to be deformation zone snows, you usually get higher ratios in those areas
Okay.
because I guess that's where you get more coincidental snow growth, and omega. But I usually kind of delve in to see whether or not those two coincide in the crosshairs, and then if they coincide in the crosshairs, and of course it's kind of a mental exercise because every hour is different. If you're 15-1 this hour, you could be 12-1 next hour. You could be 10-1 the hour after that.
Right. Or if you're near the shore,
Lucy,
if you're near the shore,
yes.
you certainly could have. You might start at 50. You might start at 10-1,
Right.
and then gradually
Right.
by 1 in the afternoon, maybe you'd be 12-1 or 13-1. Can you explain what the deformation zone is to our audience? What that means?
Well, that's where that's where your cold conveyor belt like starts wrapping around the storm system itself when it becomes a little bit more mature, and it's another area of convergence, and and from my experience, it just seems like deformation zone snows just snow themselves out. Like it's almost like they don't move. It's almost like you're in well, literally in the zone. And then, like as the low pulls out, then the next, like let's say the next wave or intrusion ends up being a little bit farther to the east, and then that system or that segment snows itself out. I don't know. Is that?
It's kind of like kind of like a shearing or stretching region of the atmosphere between two differing air masses, and causing the change in a specific air mass that leads to what is referred to as deformation, and that when you're in that zone, that is a good reason why you see these localized areas. And this also goes back to what we were talking about yesterday about how we wish that the models were a little bit better in defining or depicting where these locally heavy snow bands are, which I'm sure we're going to see a lot of on Saturday. We're going to be looking at this and saying, my God, look at how heavy the snow is in this area or that area or Long Island or coastal Connecticut. It's tough. I referred to that in an interview with Westchester Magazine a couple of years ago. They said, what's the great white whale, if you will? And I said, the great white whale is when we're forecasting snow and we simply don't have any knowledge of specifically as to where these heavy snow bands end up. And as far as the ratio is concerned, guys, I've always looked at it from this standpoint. Anything from 29 to 32 degrees, you go 10-1. And I understand that it's more than just the surface temperature because a lot has to do with what's going on upstairs to determine snow ratios. But just, off the cuff, 29 to 32, 10-1. If the surface temperature is 25 to 28 degrees, 12-1. Now, this is where we land, I think, on Saturday. Anything from 21 to 24, I'd go a flat 15-1, not 10-1, but 15-1. And when we get down to like 17 or 16 degrees, the heck with it. Everything goes out the window. I say 20-1. And if you're off slightly, who cares? Because by that time, the snow is so puffy and fluffy that who's going to be, and the way the winds will be blowing on Saturday anyway, who's going to be able to get a really good handle or a precise measurement? So that's basically how I'm looking at it for Saturday.
So being a Foose fan like I am, you would have looked at the 12Z Foose with LaGuardia getting 3/4 of an inch of liquid, and you would add 50%. If you're quoting average 15-1, you would add 50% to that, and you would come up with close to 11 inches. Correct?
Yeah, well, that if you're going to put in the puff factor there instead of going just straight 10-1, you have to do that.
Oh,
and
no,
Joe,
I'm going to do that tonight probably after when the next model cycle happens. I'm going to have to start doing that.
The T1 at one point, I think on Saturday on the Foose goes down to 90.
Yeah, minus
10 Celsius.
Minus 10.
I mean, like
that's cold.
That's cold. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be places. There are going to be places up north especially north and east when you go into Connecticut, where it's they're going to get into some of that heavy snow, some of the real heavy snow there. You could wind up with temperatures that'll be down in the upper teens. And it might even be in the upper teens in the Hudson Valley. Where you are, if that snow shield gets a little further north. Let me just run through real quick, because I can actually figure it out how I could see the super chats here. Philip Grodsky, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you guys do. As a plow guy here in Morris County, New Jersey, looks like tonight might be the last night to sleep until Sunday. I'll probably miss the show live tomorrow. Glad you caught it today. You're glad you caught it today, too. Thank you again. Teppy9076, thank you for the happy birthday wish. Enjoy the cigar, she says. I certainly will. I asked my son-in-law to pick me up a dozen when they comes up on Saturday. Now, 196 Sun Bank. Thank you so much for the generous super chat gift. That is, for Joe and I, that is a full 7-course dinner, and, well, maybe not these days with the way prices are, but let's just say a really good dinner with a nice bottle of wine and a really good cigar for me afterward. Thank you so much. Your generosity is very much appreciated. Joe Lopresti, thank you so much for your generous super chat. Everybody's super chat hit has been generous tonight. Thank you so much, and thank you again for the birthday wishes. I had the GFS. By the way, I did see the question there, I think from Nicholas Vella, when he asked what did I mean when I say liquid. I was referring to basically the precipitation when you melt it down. So liquid in other words, it falls as snow, but when you melt it down and you measure it, you get that the liquid measurement. They'll say half an inch or 3/4 of an inch. So that's what I mean when I said that how much falls. What's the liquid equivalent? And that's the map that I'm using, that we're looking to see the liquid equivalent of what this would be were it to be rain. And on the GFS, and this was the big change today from this afternoon, which, and I was talking about the clues, this bulge back of half to 3/4 of an inch of precipitation being generated for central and south Jersey, the 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and the inch line touching the coast. This is the first time the GFS has really done this, and also back down through Delaware, and now throwing a couple of tenths up into northwest New Jersey and into northeastern Pennsylvania. So this was enough for me to say, you know what, time to maybe start thinking about, maybe nudging amounts higher, or at least leaning toward the high end of what I forecasted. I'll bring up my snow forecast, the Joe snow forecast map from last night in just a bit. So that was the clue from the GFS. And the NAM, of course, as we are speaking about the NAM in its way, again, the NAM has a sharp cutoff, and this is important. Watch that sharp cutoff. The darkest green is 4/10 of an inch, and the shading above the darkest blue is 3/4 of an inch. So you basically are paying the toll. You're paying the toll to get on the GW bridge. I'm sorry, you're paying the toll to get off the turnpike, and you may have 4 inches, and then you cross the George Washington Bridge, which is only a handful of miles away, and go to the other side and get on the Cross Bronx Expressway, where it's going to take you an hour and a half to go 5 miles on a regular day. There you'd be sitting with 6+, and then go a little bit further on Long Island, and you might be sitting in 8, 9, or 10, or even more, depending on what happens. So it's very generous on the precip, but again, that sharp cutoff. Where is that sharp cutoff going to be? And that's what I think will be what we'll call the screw zone, if for lack of a better word, because I can't think of a better word at the moment. For those of you who are sitting in those areas where you're right on the edge of the heavier snow shield.
By the way, one of our fans is watching us is from AccuWeather, Joe Lundberg.
Oh, wow! Hi, Joe.
He's a big fan of the Joe and Joe show. Apparently, I didn't know about it until just a few moments ago.
Oh my God!
And you could hear those of us here.
I'm thrilled.
Go ahead,
this
Joe.
is thrilling. I'm sorry. This is so thrilling for me. That's great. It's so wonderful to have you on the show. Very, very flattered to have you here watching.
Joe Lundberg for a time was on 1010 Wins, and now you can hear him each morning up in my neck of the woods on WHUD doing the morning weather with Mike and Casey. But I did like a double take. I said, my God, it's the one and only Joe Lumberg. And here he is watching us. But we have all these people watching us, Joe. I mean, like, I know one night we had Audrey Punte watching us from Fox 5. And of course, I mentioned Alan Casper's watching us, the man who we grew up with.
Yes.
How does that make you feel, Alan? And Carl White's, Ken Musillo, and Forza Jersey, adding their names to the list on the Super Chat board tonight. The big night, Joe.
Yes, it is. Anthony,
Yes.
WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, they put out their probabilities, and I've noticed we've been using them quite a bit. I just had the probability of at least 12, but I decided right now to just go back to the probability of at least 2. I find that the 50% line of whatever inches there you look at, that the 50% line seems for me to work where that's probably a fairly good bet that 2 inches is going to fall if you see 50% or higher. I don't know if you paid a lot of attention to what WPC would do, because you guys, I mean, you have so much stuff you have to look at, and it's conceivable. I mean, it's conceivable that you can't look at everything. So I'm asking you,
Joe,
in your process, did you go ahead?
But I on the screen right now, I think we have a picture of Omni True Value, or one of the Omni hardware stores.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Thanks for telling me that. I forgot to switch back. That was. Let me just let's get this. Hang on, give me. I'm so excited that Joe Lumberg and Alan Casper are watching, and it's just like it's really just kind of set me back. All right, talk about WPC and the snow probability maps. What's the deal with that? What do you think? What's useful about it? Go on.
Oh, well, when in any of these winter situations, what ends up happening is that internally, WPC sends to the Eastern region. It may be actually nationally now, because I've been retired for about 5 or 6 years. So it may actually be nationally. What they do is that they coordinate with all the offices. They send out their, I don't want to say their probability maps, but let's say their snowfall expectation maps. And then they have an open window for comments about, do you like it? Do you not like it? And then they go from there. They may adjust it. They may not adjust it depending upon your comments and what the neighboring offices have to say. So to me, seeing the 50% contour, I may not see it like per se, but we're actually in the process of discussing it with them. So like when their final product comes out, it kind of matches the consensus agreement between them and the forecast offices.
When I'm looking at the timestamp, this was a question that I came up in a conversation with Alan and I. So, for example, the timestamp at they put out an update on the long range. It usually comes out a little bit before midnight. So I'm guessing that they probably, because there are a lot of times where they do that forecast, and I'll look at the midnight package and I'll just say, well, how did they get to that? Because I really don't see it from what's on here. I'm figuring it takes them some time to make the map. It takes them some time to write the discussion, so that outside of maybe just a little tiny peak, they really don't use the beginnings of the nighttime model cycle to go into that midnight forecast. So essentially, it's sort of like they're one cycle behind when they're doing those forecasts, depending on the timestamp.
Yeah, you're talking about like longer range. I mean, I'm talking about like this event. Like once you get within 72 hours. Once you get outside of 72 hours. Yeah, I don't personally like pay as much attention to it. I mean, you kind of like, if you just think about like where we were 3 or 4 days ago, just think of where we were yesterday.
Right.
I mean, there's just so much variability in it that you kind of get like a ballpark picture. You know what they're looking at. You see what you're looking at. But that's right, because of their time constraints. Sometimes what they're looking at, like the previous sounding run information, when they're coming up with this information, they can't wait because of their cycle for when they have to get it out for, let's just say, especially on Eastern Daylight Time, which is so lovely come March,
Yes.
in order for them to look at like the 12Z model run cycle, let's just say on the day shift.
Hey, Joe. Rayo.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you heard him, but it seems like we have an ally here with regards to getting rid of daylight saving time.
Oh no, I want to just push it back. I want to push it back to April.
Oh, you want to push it back to April? I know.
Yes.
I'm already thinking about the fact that we're just a handful of weeks away, really, from the move back to the hour ahead. Because it throws all the maps
stupid
off, and then everything, especially the European. I actually almost stayed up for the European run last night, but I fell asleep like 15 minutes before it started. You can't do that it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm 63 now. No, 10 o'clock. It's like I should be asleep. I should be in bed.
I could stay up. I could stay up to wait for the European, but I have to have a very good episode of The Twilight Zone and/or Alfred Hitchcock Presents on MeTV to keep me up that late. If I've already seen those, or it's not one of my favorite episodes, I say to hell with it. I'll wake up tomorrow morning and check out and see what the European did. But some nights I'm able to stay up late, and then I have to face my wife the next morning because she said, it was 2 o'clock in the morning and you woke me up. So
yeah. It's
a no-win situation.
I have the Weather Service digital forecast up so we can take a look at the snowfall accumulations up and down the East Coast. Because you know what? It's not just about eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. It's about northern New England and upstate New York. It's also about Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and the Carolinas, or specifically North Carolina, Maine, Portland, Atlantic City, by the way. I don't know if you know this, Tony, but Atlantic City seasonal snowfall is higher than Portland, Maine's is, or at least it was a few days ago. That, according to our chairman, Scott Briller, who's one of our regulars and does all sorts of things with feeding us statistics and setting up our Briller Jeopardy game at the end of the show. But he sent me a tweet saying how Atlantic City's seasonal snowfall is higher right now than it is in Portland, Maine. And it's actually higher than it is at Albany, because Albany's only had about a foot for the whole season, believe it or not.
Oh, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Joe, allow me undisable participating screen sharing, because I want to show you and Tony and everybody a very interesting picture, a very interesting photograph here.
Okay, one moment, please. Let's, whoops, that's not the right button.
It's about one of what we were talking about, one of the facets of this forecast for Saturday, namely the cutoff line. I want to show you a pretty amazing picture here.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to put you stand by, and you're on the air. You're on the air.
Okay, here we go. This, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see it on your screen right now, this is what happened 6 years ago today. 6 years ago today, New York City, and I know you remember this, Joe, and I know Tony does too. 6 years ago today, New York City broke the all-time record for a snowstorm when they received 27.5 inches of snow. Here, of course, is New York City. That was on a Saturday, if I recall correctly. Now, this is where I live. I live up here in Putnam Valley. I didn't get 27.5 inches, but I did measure off 11 inches of snow. I got 11 inches of snow on my driveway here in Putnam Valley. Now, this is where I am. This picture is the day after the storm. This shows you the snow that fell from that storm. This was on the Sunday. Look at the band or the edge of the snow. So anywhere north of this line saw absolutely nothing. Once again, I point out that I live here with 11 inches, and look how far to the north I would have had to go to see absolutely nothing in terms of significant snowfall. And meanwhile, New York got 27.5 inches. This is about as sharp a cutoff line for significant snow as you'll ever see. And this always seems to happen with many of the bigger or larger scale storms. And this is something that needs to be watched for Saturday. Where is that cutoff line going to form north and west of New York City? That is the big question. But I mean, look at that, Joe. How amazing is that? I know that somebody in Hopewell Junction, which is 10 miles north of where I live, a friend of ours said, snow? What snow? We barely got enough to cover the grass. And meanwhile, I was out for 2 hours with the snowblower, blowing away 11 inches of snow. And meanwhile, 50 miles to my south in Midtown Manhattan, they had almost 30 inches. So, and by the way, there you go. That's.
And by the way, the orientation of that cutoff line, which is basically west, southwest, east, northeast, tells you which way the storm was moving, which was sliding east, northeast. So we're going to have a cutoff line that's going to be running northeast, southwest for tomorrow. So that's telling you that the storm is moving from the southwest to the northeast. That is an astounding picture on how sharp it is. I mean, you literally, it just goes to nothing. Thankfully there was no snow cover on the ground going into this, because then you never would have had that shot. But that is correct. That is a very, very dramatic shot.
Correct. And by the way, and I'm not ashamed to say it because, you know, it was like as Professor Romer at City College. I don't know if you guys. No, I think he retired just before you guys ended up there. But Professor Romer once told me, he said, Joe, sometimes forecasting a snowstorm in New York is like playing pool with egg-shaped balls. And I'm not ashamed to say it. On News 12, the day before this massive snow, I said 1 to 3 inches for where I live up in Putnam County, and for points north. I even had that up into Dutchess County, and 3 to 6 inches south for below 287. And of course, what happened? South of 287, they probably had 12 to 24. North of 287, they probably had anywhere from 6 to 12. And again, I even had the snow up to Dutchess County, and Dutchess County, for the most part, got nada, zilch. Very, very difficult. And when you have the gradient, not the wind gradient, but the snow accumulation gradient packed so tightly like this, and don't get me wrong, we may see this on Saturday, when you've got literally a situation where you can go from 1 inch to 5 inches over a span of 10 miles. That makes trying to forecast storms like this exceedingly difficult. Remember the egg-shaped ball theory on Saturday if we bomb out on accumulations with this storm.
Well, I want to hit my numbers. I just want to hit my numbers. Okay.
Well, we all do.
Yeah. I want to hit my numbers. I don't want somebody to come in with like a really crazy number. I want to hit my numbers. And speaking of numbers, I'll bring up the digital forecast from the Weather Service so we can take a look at what they're going for, because they did raise estimates, as I like to use that phrase. CBS News estimates that so-and-so has won the Alabama primary. But the numbers did go up. And in fact, before I even do that, I want a special thank you. Joe Arabia, best show in town, he says, hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you. Let it snow. I think we're going to have a busy day Saturday here on Long Island for emergency services. Be safe, guys. Yes, please, absolutely be safe. Another very generous hit from Super Chat of Sal Patchy. Thank you so much, Sal. Thank you. He says, thank you to both you and my Putnam County neighbor, Joe Rayo. Keep the show going always. And we will certainly do that. Joseph Gallo. Happy birthday, Joe. Thank you and Joe for creating and building up this platform for all of us to enjoy. Best wishes on your upcoming, your upcoming orbit. Thank you. And Joseph, that was Joseph Gallo. And we also have Jason Schaefer. Jason, I saw your birthday wishes from before. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to answer it. I pulled it down on my phone. I saw the notification and I clicked on it and I accidentally wound up erasing it, and then I couldn't find it. So I got. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you very much for that. Ken Musillo hitting super chat. Thank you, Kennedy. And also that's the last one I got on here. So that's good. Got that done. Said thank you. And I don't I want to always try to acknowledge everybody that participates and throws money in the tip jar. Big thank you and big hugs to all. So coastal Maine looks like double-digit snow amounts in the teens. The jackpot zone around the Cape. Although you notice the Weather Service did cut down amounts on the southern part of the Cape, where they went with some lower number. Well, no, that's actually trying to look at the geography. That's actually, they got numbers printed out offshore, so maybe those are tiny little islands out there, I guess. A foot plus in Rhode Island, a foot to a foot and a half in eastern Mass, eastern half of Connecticut, a foot. Then you see the amounts start to go down west of 91, and you start to see single digits, 7 inches in Danbury, 8 in Waterbury. In and around the city, the Upton office put the numbers up to about 6 to 8. Looks like they went for 10 for Kennedy and 10 for JFK Airport, and they also have a 10 there in Nassau County, 14 for Islip, and 12 to 15 on the East End. A foot plus, Mr. Gigi, for the New Jersey shore, up and down from Monmouth down to almost all the way to Cape May.
Monmouth County jackpot.
Monmouth County jackpot, absolutely. And Shraggy Stern Shraggy wants he's in Rockland County, and he wants a winter storm warning for Rockland County, and he would love the 1 foot line to move up to Rockland County. Right now, Joe Rayo, you're the Hudson Valley guy, so let's talk Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, Dutchess, Sullivan. Any other counties you want to throw into the mix? By all means, Ulster.
Well,
let's not forget Ulster, because Paul Roman on the chat board's from Ulster.
I didn't change the forecast from my map yesterday. I've got my map literally right in front of me. For all of Westchester, this is again from yesterday, and it's likely to go up. We'll see. For Westchester and for Putnam and for southern and eastern Dutchess County, I had in the 2 to 4 inch zone. And that also includes a good part of Rockland County as well. So Scraggy, I think at least 2, maybe 4, and quite possibly more than that. For Orange County and for the northern and western sections of Dutchess, I had an inch or 2. And as you go further north and west, maybe just a coating to an inch for western Orange County, for Sullivan, actually for Ulster County, and northernmost Dutchess County. And for Sullivan County, you may not get much of anything aside from maybe some snow showers and flurries. But again, let me just stress what I said just a very few minutes ago when I showed you that picture. Everything is going to be, I think, jammed together. We're going to have places in terms of snow amounts that are going to go on, very high, just a few miles to the south and east, and much lower to the north and west. Again, Joe, tomorrow night, I think you'll agree with me that tomorrow night will tell the tale, and tomorrow night we'll have probably a new set of numbers, a new set of maps, and whatever we say tomorrow night, that's as far as we're going to go. After tomorrow night, it won't be forecasting anymore. Once we get into Saturday, it will be nowcasting. I know a lot of people who are just breaking into weather, who may have gotten their degree and are all excited and everything else, and they start forecasting. They're still looking at the models when the darn storm has started. You stop looking at the models. You start looking at the radar, the satellite pictures. Plot a sectional, and they say, "What's that? I don't know what a sectional is." Of course not, because you don't have the teleprinters that Joe and Toni and I used to work off of way back when.
No, there are websites. There are websites that plot them for you.
Yeah, why not? So, but didn't you get a surge of excitement when you were plotting a sectional with an impending storm like this, and you saw pressure falling rapidly, pressure. Your heart started to skip a beat, like, here it comes, it comes.
Pressure
fall. You'd see during a snowstorm 904.06, which meant 6 inches has fallen, or even better yet, 1/5/13.
Yes. Those were the best.
You know, those are the best.
SNOINC, SNOINC 3/5/ whatever the last number was for the total. And Toni Gigi,
Right.
nobody plotted sectionals
Yes.
better than Tom Morgan.
Oh yeah.
Nobody.
Oh, yeah. You know, and he did it by hand.
I know, and he would get.
I mean, he had to do it by hand.
Yeah, and he would
had to do it by hand.
usually get most of the Northeast done like within less than an hour. He'd have it all done.
Oh yes.
And then he'd have to draw the isobars around. He'd draw the isobars.
Yes.
And he would plot a sectional.
Yes.
Even he would plot a sectional on a day where there was just a high pressure in the Northeast, and of course when there was a storm, you get a low. He'd find the primary low. I have memories of him, plotting a sectional with a primary going into West Virginia and a secondary, drawing the isobars. This is when I was just learning all of this, and oh, it was great. He was terrific, and he had such a sense. That the thing that really struck me, that he had such, by doing that, it gave him such a sense of what was happening. I think that just makes you a better forecaster if you do that. You're actually dealing with the weather itself when you plot the sectional, and then you see the numbers, you remember those numbers, you remember the cities you're plotting them in, and then you draw your map and you got the isobars. It really gives you a solid feel of what's actually happening.
Yeah, when
I was, I did before. I'm sorry to interrupt, Tony, but Tom Haig on the chat board said you really ought to read the weather discussion, the area weather discussion out of Boston, and I just took a look at it, and I just want to read at least a part of it here regarding heavy snow. Let me see who wrote this. Maybe one of you guys know who this is. The synopsis was written by Belk and Chai, so it's two people who wrote this discussion. And he said, still enough spread in the deterministic and ensemble suite of guidance to make for a somewhat uncertain forecast with respect to snowfall amounts and axis of heavy snowfall. However, the trend in the guidance has been further east. The GEFS ensembles are pretty much all near or south and east of the benchmark, with main focus for heavy snow across Southeast New England. However, the Canadian ensembles, and especially the RGM, your favorite model, Joe.
Okay, now I'm listening. I'm listening. He brought up my favorite lady, Mrs. Ann Samples. Okay, so, and
the Canadian ensembles, especially the RGM, have now caved to the EC and track a bomb cyclone near the 70-40 benchmark, which is typically the indicator for heavy snow potential across the I-95 corridor in Rhode Island and eastern Massachusetts. This does put the American models, GFS and NAM, as outliers against the international guidance. So all eyes are on the Thursday 12Z guidance. Even though the GFS did not quite cave into the international guidance, there was a noticeable westward jog, which suggests that an out-to-sea and or shutout condition bust scenario is looking less likely. A note about the NAM is that even though it is great for deep East Coast cyclogenesis events, we still have to take its output with a huge grain of salt until we are within 36 hours. What did you say, Tony? And especially 24 hours. For example, the Wednesday 18Z run was rather extreme in that it swung from a hit for the eastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island at 12Z to an almost complete miss for most of our area. That was a red flag, as in the forecasting world, we want to see model continuity. That also indicates that the NAM was still struggling to sample the jet energy, which was up in the Yukon territories at that time and removed from upper air sampling sites.
But we are 36 hours from start time. I mean, we're inside 36 hours now. So, I mean, he's saying we need to start paying. This is the period where we start to pay attention, correct?
Correct. But I think that this is I clicked a little button that said remove highlighting for discussion change from previous information. And I think that paragraph may very well be left over or kicked over from late yesterday or even last night, because he's talking about the Wednesday run. And of course, it's not Wednesday anymore, it's Thursday. So
let me run through these super chat hits real quick. I want to just finish up on that snow map. Mark G, happy birthday, Joe. Hoping for double-digit snowfalls for far northern Fairfield County. I got one of my snowplow guys up there that that I work with, and he gets panicky with snow showers. We was worried about tomorrow with snow showers and a coating on the ground, so I don't know what he'll do if it winds up with a foot. But north of 84, yeah, that's all. That's gonna be maybe a little bit of a struggle, but you know what? Stranger things have happened. But thank you for the very generous super chat hit, and yeah, that's more. That's another dinner and cigar for us. For the cigar for me, dinner and wine for you, Mr. Rayo. So let's or beer if you prefer. A really nice expensive craft beer. How about you, Anthony? When you're golfing, little beer every once in a while, or no?
No, just a lot of whining on the golf course.
Gotcha. All right, if you're in Pennsylvania, now once you cross the Jersey state line, the numbers go way down. Two for Allentown. These are Weather Service forecast numbers, folks. Two for Reading, and only an inch or less around Harrisburg, Lancaster, York, Chambersburg, and points west. In Maryland, they actually cut the amounts back in Washington, D.C., Baltimore to less than an inch. Probably more like a coating or so. And then you got you go over to the Delmarva side in Delaware, southern Delaware, as much as 14 to 15 being forecast there, and then down at Salisbury, 8. And moving further south down the Delmarva Peninsula, even almost down to the tip, they're forecasting 4. In Virginia, where they just had a heavy snowfall for them not too many days ago, they're going to get another round of a few inches. 2 at Richmond, 3 at Hampton, 3 in Norfolk, 3 at Virginia Beach. And then in eastern North Carolina, we're looking at basically a coating to an inch or two in most places. Greensboro, Winston-Salem, 2. Raleigh-Durham, about 1. In eastern North Carolina, looks like Elizabeth City, 2. And then the amounts, the colors didn't want to load on the map for the coast, but even a few coastal areas popping up with some numbers. There it goes to fill it in. Greenville at 1. So the coating to maybe as much as an inch down to Charlotte and even into a few counties there in South Carolina. But this time around, guys, it doesn't quite it doesn't make it to me. It didn't make it to me this time. So maybe although I may get I may get when the trough swings around, it does bring some snow down to the mountains about 15 miles from me. So you never know. One or two of them could sneak in here. And by the way, everybody today at the dog park when I take JJ down to the dog park in the morning, everybody at the dog park was whining about the fact that we were going to have a very cold Saturday morning here, forecasting lows down in the mid-teens and wind chills down below 0. So the folks here in North Georgia in the mountains are not too thrilled, let's say, about the cold air that's draining all the way down again down the eastern seaboard and probably going to get into much of Florida before it's all said and done.
Yep. What are you going to do?
I
mean, have them come up here on Saturday with wind chills in the single digits, winds blowing and gusting to 40 and 50 miles an hour, blowing snow, drifting snow. Yeah, come on up here. One good thing about cold weather, you don't have to shovel it.
No, you don't. Winter storm warnings. So just let's run through the watches and warnings that we have. And then I'll bring up the national map here. Winter storm watches are up for southern New England and on up into Maine. We have winter storm watches up for Long Island, for Connecticut now, the whole state of Connecticut now under a winter storm watch. Earlier they only had the bottom half, now the top half. Westchester.
As a little revision, Joe, NWS put my area, Putnam County, in a winter storm watch now. So
they added
we joined Westchester, and I think they also added Rockland County.
Shraggy, did you hear that, Shraggy? You went to a winter storm watch. He's got to be happy. He really wants at least, I guess it's consolation if he gets half a foot, he'd be happy. If he got a foot of snow up there, it's going to be, if the 1 foot snow line winds up going up to Rockland County, I can only imagine what's going to fall down near the coast. But nonetheless, if he winds up with half a foot, I think he'll be satisfied. Winter storm warnings up for Monmouth, Ocean, uh, Eastern Burlington County and Atlantic County and Cape May. Watches for the counties to the west and also to the counties north and west of Monmouth and north of Route 195, which is my favorite highway, Anthony. I always use uh, 195 to cut to describe most weather events when it comes to snow. 195, 78, and 80. Those east-west routes in a north-south state, they come in very handy a lot of times.
Yes, I heard it from a certain other meteorologist too, who was like a childhood hero for us.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Who I think may still be watching, unless he's nodding off by now, which is always possible. Uh, winter winter storm watch is up also for I believe that's 5 counties in or 4 counties. One, two, 3, 4 in
We in
southeastern
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania.
Joe?
Yeah, the
Yeah, those
counties,
counties are the
Philadelphia.
zones are split, Joe.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Philadelphia. It's all of Philadelphia. It's all of Delaware, and then it's like the southern half of Montgomery and the southern half of Bucks.
Okay. And winter storm warnings are also up for southern Delaware down through the Delmarva Peninsula. And we also have other winter storm watches that are up further south. And always remember, folks, that the criteria for winter storm warnings in the states to our south is different than our area. The numbers in a lot of these places are lower. I know, for example, I had a winter storm warning up here in the mountains for 1 to 3 inches and a tenth of an inch of ice accretion. So it's all depending on where you are. Winter storm watches extend down through eastern Virginia to northeastern North Carolina. Also, we have winter weather advisories along the western um, the mountains in southwestern Virginia, and winter storm warnings. I was just saying about near me. I've got the mountains in southwestern North Carolina. I'm literally about 20 miles from the beginnings of those mountains, and so winter storm warnings are up. Not that far away. I can almost touch those winter storm warnings. I can reach out and touch them, so they're very close. And around the rest of the country, excuse me, the most of the weather around the country is pretty quiet. There really isn't a whole lot going on tonight. I'll bring up the radar and we'll take a look at what's happening here at 8:53 Eastern Time. And there you have some light snows and also seeing precip here back through. That's probably part of that Arctic front that's coming down. Some of this precip that we see back in parts of the Ohio Valley, or at least the setup for it, back through West Virginia, southwestern Pennsylvania. Also, you see some echoes popping up in northeastern Virginia and around Washington, D.C. I don't know if any of this is even reaching the ground. Probably isn't. And then we have precip back through southern Indiana. All of this is light, by the way. Southern Indiana down into Kentucky and points east across Kentucky into western West Virginia and even down into North Carolina and here in North Georgia, where I made it over 50 today finally for the first time in a while.
We're going to actually hit 50 here. One of the things, another thing that has just been added on the Upton National Weather Service site is a whole slew of new observations that are available. Some of these are climatological. Shrub Oak, which is just a stone's throw away to my south, they have weather data now that indicates that the last time that in our vicinity that we hit 50 degrees was during the first 3 days of January, and we could very well approach or hit that Wednesday and Thursday of next week. We have a nice little warm up coming our way for the middle and latter part of next week after we go through all of this agita with the cold and the snow and the wind Saturday on into Sunday, and then a slow warming trend early next week, and then a big warm up for Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, of course, Groundhog Day, Joe.
Yes, it certainly is. I'm bringing up our snow maps here that you and I did. These were done yesterday. So I'll bring up Joe Rayos first. Toni, you can feel free to exercise your right of opinion as a guest, and we certainly will not throw you out. We may not invite you again, but we certainly won't throw you out.
Uh,
You know,
As to
you
what
know,
you think,
I said, Joe, that I said, Joe, and you said it, I think, yesterday too, that you only usually put out two maps.
yes,
One, the first call map, and one which is the final call. And I said, you know, Joe's probably right. Why should I put out a map today and change it if I'm only going to change it again tomorrow? So I stuck with today, which is, I guess, somewhat imposing enough for the moment, with numbers like 6 to 12 and 4 to 6. And tomorrow, if need be, we'll push the heavier snow back to the left, or bring in the drier air and push it back to the, I don't know. But this is what I put up with yesterday. And I told everybody on Facebook today, I'm not changing this until tomorrow. So
okay,
there you go.
that's fine.
Tony.
But you can see what Joe did yesterday. So, are you? I'm just asking for what you've seen right so far and what you've observed with models and everything else. Are you thinking of adjusting, raising, lowering, raising in some places, lowering in others?
Well, the fact is, if you know, as Tony mentioned, we've got new data being dumped in to help refine and to get a little bit better accuracy here. So if that be the case, and if the models start churning out more in the way of measurable precipitation, and factor in the puff factor of maybe a 12 or 15 to 1 event or whatever for Saturday, yeah, these numbers could very easily go up. The 2 to 4 for the 2 to 4 column, I could see going to 4 to 8 at least, and the 4 to 6 maybe 8 to 12, and don't even talk about what the heck the 6 to 12 could end up as. But yeah, these numbers could probably stand some increase for tomorrow. But again, we'll see what comes out tonight and what comes out tomorrow, and come back tomorrow night on Joe and Joe, and you'll get my final call. And there now is Mr. Chiaffi's call from yesterday, I believe.
Right, and I actually already have that 4 to 8 band. So this is what I did yesterday. I had 10 plus for the east end of Long Island, 10 plus for southeastern New England back to southeastern Connecticut, 8 cutting across Hartford to Nassau, southwest Nassau, and then just west of the Garden State Parkway, I have, and going east from the Parkway to the shore, 8 plus. My 4-inch line cutting through Rockland, and then west of Trenton, just west of Philadelphia, or right over Philadelphia, just south of Wilmington, and then running it back. Now I'm thinking what I'm thinking right now is I may move that 4-inch line a little bit further west and get it a little tighter. Maybe I may even move the 2. I might inch the 2 over maybe to the state line of PA, move the 4 over, and then slide the 8 over a little bit, and then I might move the 10 further west, and then maybe I'll add a 12 or a 15 perhaps for somebody, perhaps for southeastern New England. Certainly, I could probably put a 15 plus for some place. I mean, these are sort of numbers that were jumping in my head. And if you notice on the map, I always put this down. Not that anybody ever reads it, because when you put something on Facebook and then you put the link to your website, they don't go to so a lot of people don't go to the link. They'll just look at the map that might come up that represents the link and ask. Then they'll ask you a question that is answered in the website post that you just sat and wrote for an hour. So it always gets me frustrated. Here's here's something that's all about Long Island, and they'll ask you, well, what about Suffolk County? Well, why don't you click on the post and read it, and you might get the answer instead of wasting my time and making me do double work. But that's just me. I'm ranting. But I always put my confidence level down when I do the early call. And yesterday when I did this, and this was before the 18Z NAM came out, my confidence was extremely low. Tony, let me ask you, because in your forecast experience,
yes.
today, by the way, my confidence is not low. My confidence on that map actually has increased considerably. So I'm gonna probably, as long as the models kind of behave themselves and do at least what they've been doing, I'll probably move my numbers up. And by the way, these numbers I did not factor in snow ratios here. So that was just sort of straight 10 to 1. But, all your years as forecasting, I'd love to hear your opinion of, but and Joe and I will agree on this. this is not this is not an easy exercise. It's not like we say, "Oh, I feel like
No,
putting a 2 over here and a 5 over there, and I'll put a 12 here, and I'll put $1.99 there." And I mean, it's a real struggle to put these maps to put these snow maps together, and you're going to get it wrong somewhere. That's the thing. You're doing this big
yes,
geography. You can't possibly get every spot right. It's just not happening.
no, it never happens. No, no, no. And that's that's the thing. Tom, my friend Tom, who runs that Philly weather site. I mean, he puts out a forecast map too. And he said to me today, he was texting me today. He says, "I'm getting a headache on this." And I'm saying, I said, "Welcome, welcome to our lives." Yeah, when you read all like a lot of these comments, on these bulletin boards about meteorologists and stuff like that, about busting forecasts and this and that, I could just tell you, like, from the Mount Holly office, and probably from every National Weather Service office, meteorologists are much harder on themselves than anything that you can post on social media to denigrate them with, because it's like you live with the forecast. I mean, I used to have a very difficult time during winter storm events with falling asleep, because I was just concerned about what the next mile run would do, or and there's always like features, like we talk about the deformation bands and frontogenetic bands that just are not possible to peg exactly, and you're going to get areas that are going to go high, you're going to get areas that are going to go low. And it's always like, what's going to happen in my backyard? How much for Philly? That was like the running joke that everyone posts, like, how much for Philly? They don't care what happens in Mount Laurel. They don't care what happens in Shrub Oak. How much for Philly?
And because Philadelphia always seems Philadelphia is in a very, very funny spot, because anything
Yes.
that's coming from the west dries up in the mountains. Anything that's redeveloping to the east, they're too far west for a lot of the time. So they're sitting in this snow hole. If you look climatologically, there's a snow hole there in that part of southeast PA. I used to I always dreaded the thing about the snow forecast that I always dreaded was that, thankfully it didn't happen too often, but it did happen. That pit in your stomach you get when you're looking at it, you're seeing something, and you're standing there and you're looking out the window and you're saying, "Where is it? Where is it?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough. It really is, because we're all trying to do the best job we know how to do. Okay. And when it comes to weather, I'm always amazed at the number of people who demand. Somebody said something to me on Facebook. It got me furious. Um, and it was one of those things where one of those stupid things that people say to weather people. Jokes that we've all heard a million times. I think I might have said this once
Mm-hmm.
before when you were on. My favorite line is when somebody says to me, it must be nice to get to have a job where you're paid to be wrong 90% of the time. And my immediate response, without blinking an eye, is I said, right now, with that success rate, I really want to be your urologist. Because it's always, okay, because it's almost never a woman that says it. It's always a
Mm-hmm.
guy. So he's there really trying to sort
Mm-hmm.
of, he's flexing when he's saying those things to me.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, I'm a big man. I'm telling you what an idiot you are. But someone said something to me, uh, sort of reflecting that, but in a different sort of way, and it really hit me the wrong way, the way he worded it. And I thought about it, and I said, I'm amazed how there are people who demand perfection from you because they can't seem to find they don't have it in themselves. So they go around thinking that they can do your job better than you can. And
Mm-hmm.
it just I guess sometimes sometimes I could have maybe read that at another time and it wouldn't have bothered me. Maybe it was just the moment, but it just truly did. And we try to do the best we can when we do these snowfall maps. We really put our hearts into it because we want to. I want to get every spot right, and I know I'm not going to.
That was the Tom Grant line. He used to say, well, I know the errors are going to begin the moment I hit the enter button.
Yeah.
It's very, yeah, it's very much. I think our job is kind of somewhat similar to a pitcher, a relief pitcher coming out of the bullpen to try to stave off any kind of major rally by the opposing team. And sometimes you're Mariano Rivera, and sometimes you're sometimes you're not Mariano Rivera,
Right.
and you get knocked around the ballpark.
Who was the guy? Who was
this
the
is very
guy?
much-
Who was the relief pitcher for the Yankees back in the '70s that used to throw the folly floater? Do you remember its name?
Oh, Steve Hamilton.
Yeah, you're not Steve
Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, we've got 330 likes. Thank you so much for those of you who've hit the like button tonight. We really appreciate it. We're glad that you like the show, and we're not that far from 400, so it'd be nice if we could finish up the show with 400 likes. So if you haven't hit the like button there, by all means, please hit the like button. And by the way, big thanks to Steve Lapointe, because he's always our cheerleader on the chat board, telling people to hit the like button and hit the like button. And it's really appreciated, Steve, very much. You do put your heart into the show every night when you're on the chat board, and don't think it hasn't gone unnoticed. It's actually, I should have mentioned it a long time ago, but I've gotten into the habit now, Joe, Rayo, and Tony, that I don't know if you're at this point, Anthony, in your life experience and your age, but you got to write stuff down. You have to write stuff down, because
Yes.
if you don't write stuff down, if I didn't write down that I have to mention that I got to write stuff down, I would have forgotten to mention it. Let's put it that way. Write everything down. So, and thank you, thanks, Steve, very, very much. And yeah, so we're up at 377. So if you want us to, yeah,
I think if people want us to
400.
finally end this show,
Yes, exactly.
if you want us to end the show, if you want this to finally end for the night, push the like button so that we get the 400, so we can close everything off, because we're going now into our 1 hour and 38 minutes, guys.
Well, we did a 2-hour show yesterday.
Done.
Remember, we did a 2-hour show yesterday,
Yeah.
Joe.
I think we did 2 hours the night before. We didn't go 138. We didn't go as long last night. Last night, I think
I thought it was last night we went to.
Yeah.
No, it was the night before. You're right. You're right. It
Right.
was the night before.
Right. All right, here we go. 398. 2 more likes, please. 401, Joe.
By the way, hold on.
401.
By the way, thank you. Now, we can't go out yet. You know why? Because guess what? We talked so much, and it's actually running ahead. The new NAM is out. So it's out far enough, too. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Now, I don't know, you, Anthony, you're at a disadvantage because you can't see it. But Joe,
I'm all choked up because I'm seeing it. I'm actually toggling on my computer as you're talking, so I see it's farther northwest.
Oh my!
It is more tucked in.
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh God. Yeah. No, it's more tucked in. The northern shield is definitely further north than west. Let me see on. Hold on, because I got my. I got to switch over here. So everybody's glued. I know everybody right now is glued. We got the new NAM. Is there an algorithm out there that'll bring more viewers who want to see the new NAM? Oh my. That's the 18Z. Oh, you know what? I better change maps.
I'm up to.
No, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Up to 32 hours, Joe. I'm up to 32 hours on the NAM.
Yeah, I have
3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday.
No, I have. I pulled up Pivotal Weather, so I had the old Cucciara ratios. I better get rid of this. You know, the numbers are not allowed to be that high. So I don't want to get into the Cucciara ones, because those numbers, some of them are really off the wall. So let's take a look at 0Z, and I'm out to 36 hours. So 36 hours takes us through 7 a.m. on Saturday, at which point it looks like, now this is through 7 a.m. Saturday. We have 5 on the ground at Islip, 5 on the ground in New York City. This is in the world according to the NAM. 4.5 on the ground in Bridgewater. It's just under 6 at Trenton, 5 at Philly, 4.3 at Wilmington. In New Jersey, 7.1 at Vineland, 8.6 already at Toms River. Long Branch, 7.3. North and East, Bridgeport, 3.2. Now the Poughkeepsie. Now this is interesting. Is this for if you live on the coast, it's probably just as important for you to look to see what's going on, how far north and west the shield is. So according to the NAM, 1.3 inches at Scranton, 2.9 at Allentown, Middletown 1.8, Poughkeepsie 1.6. Those are important numbers to look at, because if those numbers are going higher, that's telling you that that snow shield is further to the west.
Yes, indeed.
So
well, I'm still stuck at 32 hours. I'm still on tropical tidbits, but it's very obvious when you make the comparison between the 0 and the 12Z run that this particular run is a lot more prolific, if you will, in terms of snow.
I'm stuck at 36 here. So, all right. You know what? You're right, Joe. We're coming up on an hour and 45, and Toni is tired, and he was so generous to give us his time to come on the show and be part of this tonight. And I really hope you had a good time. We love having you here.
Oh, I did.
We really do.
Mm-hmm.
We love having you
You
here.
know where
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know where I live, Joe.
Yes.
You know where I live, Joe.
Yes. Well, I will seek.
Let's dedicate tonight's Joe and Joe show to those who brought us up to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Albert Ehrlich, Professor Jerome Spar.
Yes.
Professor Greenberg. All of these people who picked us up by our bootstraps and said, "We're kicking you out of here. Get the hell out of City College."
Absolutely.
And here we are today, doing what we're doing.
Yep.
I actually have the paper from Spar, the front page of his research paper of the proximity of Lowe's to New York City.
The Spar
snow box.
The box.
Yes,
the box.
When we talk about the box. Yes, that Professor Jerome Spar was, that was his work. He came up with the box. That is the area that's east of Virginia out to 70 north, roughly east of Virginia out to 70 north of 35 degrees north, and then you'd go right along 70 west. And when you plot where tracks of major snowstorms that have hit the New York City area, all of them, most of them. There have been outliers though that have gone outside the box, but the vast majority of them are inside the box. So you always look to see if lows track inside the box, and this one is tracking inside the box and trying to head to the so-called 4070 benchmark, which is conveniently. How many miles is that from Montauk? I always forget. Is it 90 miles southeast of Montauk? I think.
Something like that.
Something like that.
We'll figure it.
That's where you look for storm centers to go to that have a number of storms that have gone to that have caused, as Joe read in that Boston discussion, have caused big snowstorms in the I-95 corridor up in Boston, the Boston, Rhode Island area, and also back to New York City and down through New Guernsey, the great state of New Guernsey. So, anyhow, thank you.
Joe.
Yes, Toni.
Joe, I just one thing before when you were talking about Atlantic City having more snow than I guess some places in Maine, I honestly didn't realize that. I thought you were going with that. There's no way in heck that Atlantic City, with what's transpiring, that they are not going to break their January all-time snowfall record.
What is their January all-time snowfall record? Do you know?
Do a little more talking and I'll look it up.
Oh, okay.
It's like 21 inches or something like that. It isn't.
Does that go back to 2011 maybe, or 2010 or 2011?
No. This goes back. I mean, this is off of XMAC.
No. But I'm saying when you look up the record year, I'm wondering if it was 2011. There was that one year that the like Baltimore, Washington, Atlantic City, it was one after another after another. And I'm trying to remember in my mind if that was 2011.
Whoops. Whoever did this XMHCIS is it makes sense to them. It was actually Joe. It was 1987
1987
for Atlantic City.
Really? Boy, I don't remember
Yes.
that.
Yeah, 20.3, and so far this month they're up to 17.2.
Well, they're going to add to that.
Yes.
There's no question about that.
I thought it was safe a couple of days ago of saying, Atlantic City is going to break their record. And then a couple of the runs came in yesterday, and I said, well, how much of a jinx can I be?
Portland,
but, they look pretty safe.
But Portland, Maine's going to pick up some good snows out of this. So I don't know what they have so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
So although if Atlantic City winds up with a foot and Portland winds up with a foot, Atlantic City will still be in the lead. Albany is going to get very little out of this. By the way, I have out to 1 p.m. for snowfall totals off the NAM. Now, these are the NAM numbers. These are not, we're not forecasting this. This is what the models are forecasting. So don't come back and say, well, Joe said that we're supposed to get X number of inches for this number of city and we didn't get it. Because that's not what I'm doing here. I'm just illustrating what the new NAM has done. Just under 15 at Toms River, just under 14 at Long Branch, 15 at Brentwood, 9 in New York City, a little over 9. Yonkers 7.5. Joe, it looks like you get the south. Are you in south? Is where you are? Are you in Southeast Putnam or Northwest Putnam?
I'm in Southwest Putnam.
Oh, you're in Southwest Putnam. Okay, so you get actually on the NAM somewhere between 5 and 6, and Southeast Putnam gets between 6 and 7. Northwest Putnam actually gets only about 3 to 4. So those are your numbers there. This is on the NAM. Bridgeport just under 11, Waterbury 10.5, Providence just under 15, Boston, and of course they have a long way to go in terms of snow totals. And again, this is through 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, and I got another 3 hours just jumped. So the big winner actually.
Joe, I'm looking here.
Go ahead.
I'm looking here at the NAM, and I'm jumping, at 3 hour, 1 and 3 hour increments. I think this thing goes from 978 southeast of, I'd say about 200 miles southeast of New York City. By the time we get to 1 o'clock, this is down to a 965, and it looks like the damn thing is curving to the north and northwest.
That's the upper low. Let me put that on the screen and show everybody. That's right, Anthony. That's the upper low getting involved now.
It's pulling it. Yeah, it's pulling it northwest.
And this was something. Right. This was something the Europeans showed back a couple of runs ago. I'm going to take heat because I really disparaged the European. And you know what? If this winds up, playing out, and I have to take heat for that, I will take heat and apologize for it, because when I'm wrong, and I say so. And I don't say I'm wrong, but I would have been right, because if it wasn't for the fact that I was wrong, I would have been right. I love when people do that. But yeah, it hooks back north. No, seriously, don't you love it when people, they say, I'm sorry when I was wrong, and then they come up with 1,000 excuses, and which is sort of like the non-apology apology. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. No, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So yeah, that's that hook back. That is the upper low grabbing it and making the storm almost vertical, and that's problematic here. That's 1 o'clock in the afternoon with all those dark blue snows back to the Jersey Shore. And we'll take a look. I want to look at the 500. It's on the screen here so everybody can see. This is really something what this is turning into. But here's the sharpening trough along 80. That's as far out as it goes. Let me just try that other option. Sometimes the vorticity one is out a little bit further. And that theory, oh, yeah, it actually just is. It's just a few frames further. So we can't really see the cutoff forming. This is at 3 a.m. on Saturday, so it's way behind what that surface is. So they're not matching up. But you can see the sharpness of the trough, which has been the subject matter on this show all week long. And it is very sharp, and you're getting ready for it to go negative, and it's also getting ready for us to watch it cut off. So I'm thinking if the GFS does what I think it's going to do, which is to come around a bit more to the global models, those numbers are going up tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't seen. It's very unusual. This kind of sparks memories of the blizzard of '78, where the thing just ended up, in neutral gear for about 12 hours while it did a little loop-de-loop southeast of Montauk. And I remember with that storm in the Bronx, in Throgs Neck, where I was, we had 12 inches of snow by the end of the day. That was on a Monday. Then it kind of petered out and stopped. And then we got lightning and thunder late that night. And when I woke up the next morning, another 12 inches had fallen. And that was due to the function of the storm just intensifying and wrapping up. And this is going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the global models do. We're all looking at the 12 kilometer. What is the 3 kilometer doing?
Oh, that's not going to be out far enough
with this.
That's usually a bunch of hours behind.
Well, that's about the. Well, this is 31 hours.
Yeah, I know.
It's out to 31 hours.
The 3, I bet you the 3 is only out like half as much. I could be wrong. It's only out to 19.
2 a.m. on Saturday. I have it here I have it out to 31 hours, Joe. 2 a.m. on Saturday.
Really? I only have it. Let me switch to the other map here. Hang on. No, I have on the 3 kilometer. Did I pull up the right one? No, on the 3 kilometer on the 500. I was looking at the 500. It's only out till Friday afternoon.
500.
Yeah.
Oh.
The surface.
Okay.
But as I said earlier, I mean, I just don't use the 3 kilometer when it comes to the wintertime. I usually don't. Yeah, there it is. I see it.
On Pivotal, Joe.
Yes.
On Pivotal, Joe, it's out through 41 hours, and it has 5 inches. That's noon. 5 inches in Philadelphia, 7.2 New York City, 12.3 Islip. It's got some sort of snow hole down in southern Rhode Island, and I would say it's like 5.1 in like White Plains.
Right. Okay. Well,
so it's more than what it had.
So now the 3 kilometers.
Joe?
Now the 3 kilometers on board.
Joe?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
I just got a phone call.
Yes.
Renee says she wants you in on Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Renee who? I'm kidding.
Personal joke, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm kidding. Oh, hold on. Not to leave you out of the conversation. Guess who I talked to this morning on Messenger? Guess who I talked to? Oh, you can't.
On Messenger?
You won't guess.
Mark Weiner.
No. Hi, Ivan. I talked to Ivan this morning.
Ivan.
God bless him. I was up at 4 this morning, and at 4:30 I get a happy birthday message from Ivan. I mean, that was really nice. Ivan was was our director, but he was also my director. He used to do my shows most of the time, and he was a very methodical. If you needed somebody to keep you on the straight and narrow to make sure that you got your work done and that you were in the right place at the right time, Ivan is the guy that you would have. He was a great director. He rarely made an error, but he would remind me, Joe, we need to do this. Joe, we need to do that, and I would go in and we would get it done. So it really was welcoming to get Ivan to when he said, when he wished me a happy birthday this morning, he put a big smile on my face. So anyway, I think we should.
It looks like the storm. It looks like the NAM now, the 12 kilometer NAM, as of as of 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon, 960 millibars, maybe about 50 miles south of Cape Cod, and now it finally it's 961 and starts moving back finally off to the north and east. So it finally lets go. It does that.
It does that temporary jog for about 3 or 4 hours because of the upper low, and then it starts to move to the northeast. And by the way, Joe, what model the other day had the 950, the low 950s, pretty close. If that verifies, the winner's going to be the Canadian, in my view, on who handled this storm the best.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what the Canadian says tonight. You watch the Canadian tonight. Will say, well, maybe it will dry out.
Stop! Stop!
From New York City on West.
The snow lovers, Joe, are listening to this and listening to you, and they're like, you're knocking it down.
I'm just saying that's a when you think, but when you think it's a certainty, you say, all right, this is it, and then all of a sudden, like, what the heck?
I know, but
it's kind of like we only have with the 18
I know we only have really just one or two more model cycles before we go into nowcast mode anyway. So Toni, thanks very much for being here.
Yes.
As I said, anytime you want to come on, you're always welcome. If you've got something to say, just give me send me a text and say, hey, I want to come on tonight, and the door is always open for you. You're always welcome here to our home.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
And
thank you
for
very
everybody
much.
else,
you,
floored personally by all the wonderful birthday wishes that you gave me. Thank you so much for that. The generosity with the super chat hits. Thank you so much for that. The long list of people. I hope to God we got everybody with a big thank you. If we missed you,
Mr. Poetic just chimed in again on super chats. Thank you so much, Mr. Poetic.
Yeah, I just saw him go by because I can look at the chat board now. Okay, 448 likes tonight. Thank you for those of you who hit the like button. And if you think about it, you can download. Well, you can't do it now. My website's been down, and that means my app is down. So you can't download the free Meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app. But let me just give a quick check because they were trying to. I crashed. My traffic today, guys, was so heavy on my website that I crashed the server, and I was on one of their bigger servers, and they don't have one that's bigger, and they can't handle me. So there's a problem here.
You're a troublemaker, Joe.
All right, so it's still down. So you can't do it now, but when the website comes up, you can download. You go to Google Play or the App Store. You can actually do that anyway. You go to Google Play or the App Store and download the free Meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app because, among other things, it has every snowfall forecast map from Maine all the way down to Georgia from the National Weather Service. And when those maps are updated, they update automatically on the app. So instead of having to go to every single page, you can just go to the app and pull all the snow maps down all at the same time and look at them one at a time and just relish if you're getting the snow or maybe somebody else is getting the snow, but you'll be able to see it on their National Weather Service Forecast Office snowfall forecast map. Okay, so we're done. Thank you again. And we'll be back tomorrow night. And, of course, I'm thinking we normally don't go do a show on Friday, but we will tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Tim Gora just hit Super Chat right before we went off, Joe. So I just want to give a big thank you to Tim for doing that. And we'll be on tomorrow night, and we're probably going to be on it sometime on Saturday. Joe and I will figure that out, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll figure out what time we're going to do it, okay? So good night, everybody.
Nighty night.
Good night.